Learning and Development in Perth Kinross, Empowering Our Workforce podcast with Dave Henderson, Gillian Muir, James Fulton, Julie Hutton, and our wonderful host, Colin Payton.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this special podcast. We're joined today in the Perth Kinross studio, which is lovely. Behind our podcast guest today, we've got a map of Perth Kinross, and that I think will become a wee bit more important as we have a chat about learning. So I am joined today by the Workforce Planning and Learning and Development subgroup, and it's so nice to see them. So nice to see them, and I think that partly about having the map behind there. When we think of learning, you know, we can go back to when we were in school and how important that was. But as we get older, sometimes we think, do we still need to learn? But yes, we still need to learn, and that's so important. And learning goes across the world. But today we're talking about Perth and Kinross. So that map behind us there, we can pinpoint where the learning is done across Perth and Kinross for the people in the studio. So joining me in the studio, though, I have Julie Hutton, who is the Chief Executive for the Independent Advocacy for Perth and Kinross. We have James Fulton, who is an allied health professional, clinical educator within Perth and Kinross. We have Gillian Muir, who is Senior Learning Development Officer within the Health and Social Care Partnership within Perth and Kinross. And we have Dave Henderson, who is a Scottish Care Independent Sector Lead for Perth and Kinross as well. So I got to say, I know some of these people personally, and they are a fantastic bunch of people, but also very passionate about the learning of staff and taking that forward as well. So that development, and I think now we used to talk about training an awful lot, or we're going to train staff, we're going to do this, staff are going to go on training. But I think those words now about learning and development are a lot more palatable, because you can talk more about that, and everybody has to learn. Training still has a purpose, I would say, but definitely that sort of development as well. We all got to understand where we have to develop as well. So it is lovely to be joined in this studio today with yourselves. So Gillian, I always like to do this. Gillian, just for the listeners out there, how are you?
How am I?
How are you? Yes, are you
well?
well?
I'm very well, thank you, Colin, for asking. I'm good. It's a lovely bright day. I'm involved in a piece of work today with colleagues that I'm really enjoying this bit of work that we're doing together. So it's a good Monday afternoon.
It is a lovely Monday afternoon, lovely way to do this. So I'm going to just go, if it's okay, I am going to start with yourself, Gillian, okay? Mm-hmm. Can you tell me who are the Workforce Planning Group? Who are they? What are they about? Who are they?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So we're a subgroup of the main workforce planning group, and we are all people who are invested in learning and development for the staff, managers, volunteers who work within our different sectors to provide services to people in our local community. So we're a group that represent health, social care and social work, third sector, and the independent sector. So these are all the sectors that are involved in the Health and Social Care Partnership, and we have representation from all of those sectors in our subgroup, the Learning Development Group. So as I say, we're all people who have a real passion for and have maybe jobs and responsibilities around assessing learning needs, developing learning programmes, and delivering those to our staff workforce across the partnership. So I think in terms of the third sector, we have colleagues who are part of our subgroup from, obviously, Julie, from Independent Advocacy. We have colleagues from Perth Autism, for example, from Women's Aid and Mindspace. So that's really great. And then James, obviously, there are other health colleagues on the group. I don't know, James, if you want to give examples of the roles that some of your health colleagues are in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm representing allied health professions that we'll maybe talk a bit more about later on, but also our nursing colleagues and the kind of wider medical sector as well.
Yeah, so I think that's interesting, knowing that in social care, social work, we learn development staff, and in health, there are people with roles around that. Dave and Julie are obviously people who are managing and also represent people in third and independent sector.
So thank you so much, and that just gives a wee focus to everybody listening about who you are. But I'm going to ask one thing, because you jumped in there and went, we're the subgroup of the bigger group. of the
Okay.
workforce planning group.
Yeah.
So for people listening out there, they were like, "Oh, so there's a bigger group than this group we're just talking to today. Who are that bigger group?" So I don't want need to know who is all part, but I from my understanding, so the workforce planning is a large plan. It's like the map sitting behind you there of Perth and Kinross, and it
Absolutely.
covers
Yes.
everything. Covers
Yeah.
everything, and as part of that, learning and development is part of that plan to ensure that the people live in Perth and Kinross, they get the best service through the staff that work within
Yeah.
that big map behind you there. So,
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
that fair to say that that's who
I
the
think that's helpful to say, and I suppose what we know is that learning and development when staff are getting that, that helps other parts of the work, which is about recruitment and retention, for example. So yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and
thank you.
I think that's a really important point to make as well, Gillian. Just around
Mm.
that recruitment. I mean, the retention part, definitely we want people to be as happy as they are within the jobs that they come in to do. But I think that recruitment part as well, it's nice to see people who live in the community and work within the community, live within the community, work within their community as well, especially
Absolutely.
around a
Yeah.
lot of the jobs that yourselves are all involved in, which we'll hear a
Mm.
bit more as we go through. But I think that's probably a good way of looking at that as well. It's just building for the future, isn't
Yeah,
it, really? Is that a good,
definitely.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
present and the
absolutely. Yeah,
future. So,
yeah.
yeah, so
Mhm.
fantastic. So, James, I'm going to ask you if it's okay, and I'm going to ask first, as I always do. How are you, sir? Are you well?
I'm very well. I'm very well. I was tempted to bring out the shorts today, Colin. Was it 26 degrees out there? But no,
Is it as
we're
hot
with a
as that?
linen trouser instead, so breathable.
Just in case anybody's not watching this in the video, even if James did have shorts on today, his legs are under the table, so I think we're all right with that. So absolutely fantastic. So well done, James. Just elaborating a wee bit more. What do you do when you get together? You know, for others out there again, when you hear the learning development subgroup, they've got a meeting next Thursday, like some sort of secret society of people who are all very clever coming together to do some learning. What do you do when you come together?
Well, I'd say a kind of variety of things, really. We started off, been meeting for about a year now, I would say, and it did start off online. It was difficult to get people from the different areas together. I think there were challenges around that initially, but we recognised the value of bringing people together and being together in a room, in a space, and we've shared the hosting across Perth. Which has been helpful as well. There's always snacks, Colin. Do you know, any successful meeting, there's usually something tasty. And with me being a dietitian, I'm an advocate of that. I like my food, as do we all. But yeah, we when we come together, we welcome each other. We've tried a couple of new techniques recently around doing kind of mindful introduction sessions, just to bring us into that kind of headspace, recognizing that we're busy and coming from other areas. So just getting us into that space gently, I think has been a really nice approach. Certainly a new approach for me in terms of coming to meetings. And then we'll have a bit of an agenda, but absolutely flexible within that as well. We've got a bit of a hybrid approach to it as well. So some that can't make it have been able to join us online, which is helpful. And yeah, we've been looking at different things within that, Colin, but I don't know if you want me to get into that at this point.
No, well, I think the bit is there. There's a couple of things for myself there, James. I think it's really important. So I think again for listeners out there, you've been going for over a year. So some people may have heard of you, some people might not. This might be the first time that they have heard. So now they know a bit about who's all in the subgroup. That I think that's really important. And again, that you have been meeting for a year. So there's obviously developments that have progressed, and we'll hear a bit more as we go around and chat there. But I like what you're saying there as well, because so for a lot of us, meetings have been a number of ways, one in person or online, but I think for yourselves as a learning and development subgroup and a learning and development group, and again, correct me, please come back. I don't think that's the case at all. I like when we're on the chat show together, as I like to call it, and people challenge. But I think there's a bit there, modeling that practice. Because even you said there, we've tried a few different ways to try and set that agenda. People are busy in their workplace, just trying to think about different ways of doing that. So I think even that I'm going to take learning from this as we talk today. But that learning and that development, I think other people could learn from that about meetings as well. Everything's so quick, but actually just maybe taking that time just to stop, think about the agenda, get ourselves in the headspace of doing that, I think is good modelling. So even saying to people today, that's maybe the way we should be leading our meetings going forward as well. And you guys are setting that benchmark. So that's fantastic in doing that.
I think there's there's that sense of shared responsibility and ownership around it as well, which has been really refreshing. So we talked about the hosting and someone taking responsibility for maybe booking a different venue and sharing that. But sharing the kind of minute taking, the action point stuff, the chairing of the meeting, having that focus whilst we're in that protected time. But it's been a really fun way to do it.
Fantastic. So I'm going to move on, if that's okay, James. I'm going to come to Julie. Julie, how are you today?
I'm doing grand, thanks, Colin. Really well, thank you.
Good. So why does this matter? Why does this matter, and what makes it so? I'm going to use that word so, probably not good English, important to our workforce.
Really great question, and thanks for asking that. Just as James is saying, we have been meeting for a year, and we've been thinking and kind of exploring how we can make connection, because we come together, we believe that learning really matters for everyone. Everybody needs this learning. And everybody deserves the opportunity to learn. And I guess what we come together and we're like, the knowledge is key to the progress and how we can move forward. So really thinking about what matters to us as a group. How do we come together? How do we connect? So we've been really thinking about what matters to us, what matters to our teams, what matters to the workforce. So what are the needs as learners? Because our workforce are our asset, and really bring the gifts every day when they come to work. So we want to make an inclusive learning culture. We want people to feel enabled and confident and supported, so that they are empowered to do their job as best as they can. But often I talk about it's not just knowing what to do, but it's the manner and how we do it. So just as James was talking about us meeting for a year, we've really had to think about how we come together. So in the learning process, in delivering that, in thinking about this podcast, how are we going to get the message over to everybody that's going to watch it? So that's what's really important to us, and that's what matters to us most of all.
And Julie, thank you very much. And I think that what matters to you, I hear that quite a lot now. And I think that's really important. I also think that bit there, again, using that whole map behind you, is what matters to people who we work for, I guess, in saying that, and you guys work for, and the staff works for, and being able to offer the service that people need. So I think that is really, really good. And that knowledge is key. I think, again, just those sort of words there, knowledge is key, but we don't have to be knowledgeable in everything. I guess you guys would say that. Would that be fair to say?
100%. Yeah, 100%. And we're really thinking about the people we're here to serve, the people who live in Perth and Kinross and need to use the services, whether it's health, social care, care, independent care, or in the third sector. And we believe that the more time, effort, thought that we put into as a workforce to learn and to bring the best version of ourselves to our jobs every day, then that person-centred care can really be meaningful, can really be delivered from a compassionate workforce that connect and work together around the people in Perth and Kinross.
Oh, very, very well put, Julie, very well put. And I like that saying you said there as well about staff bringing the gifts every day. And I guess when you're saying that, you're talking about staff bringing themselves every day and being the best that they can be, and the learning they have and the development they have to be the best they can be. And I think that is, I will also say to any of my colleagues listening, if they do want to bring me small gifts, I'm more than welcome to that as well. So I will take those gifts, but obviously I won't. That's not right. You're saying that. Dave, sir, How are you?
Well, better for being with you, Colin.
Fantastic. No, see, the thing is, now, this is a lovely way of being able to have a conversation, having a chat with people, and obviously, Dave, yourself and I have worked together for a long time, and people should know that, and we've been on a few, I'm going to say we've been on a few different shows together, Dave, over the years as well. Now, before, I like to say as well, because people sometimes, and this is the magic of the chat show radio, as I like to call it, in the podcast, but prior to Dave getting here, everybody was a bit worried Dave wasn't going to turn up. He's a wee bit of a star. Is Dave coming? He would. But they looked out the window, Dave, and they saw you running across the road. So absolutely fantastic. And I think for the listeners out there, I think that just shows how important this is. That you guys wanted to be here today to deliver this, so people can hear a bit more about the learning and development subgroup. And I think that's credit to all of you. So absolutely fantastic. So on that note, Dave, how can people listening? How can they get on board and be part of this exciting work? So how the listeners out there listening today, they've heard this, they've heard about, there's possibly snacks at the meetings as well, but then more importantly, they want to be part of something that is going to make a difference for them, but also for the future and the workforce of the future as well within Perth and Kinross. In return, just makes it life better and hopefully better outcomes for people that we work with. So how can people listening get on board, Dave?
Well, Colin, I'm old school, and I always believed in training, and now this movement was learning, and I totally support that. So I remember having a conversation with Moira Gill, the team leader of learning development, about when I worked for the partnership, and she said, Dave, you can do your own learning. You can go and watch YouTube videos or TED videos or whatever and do research. So individuals have got their own responsibility, continuous professional learning, etc. But for the purpose of this group, though, it's quite refreshing being on this group, and I think we've all touched on it, is that we're doing things slower and more deliberate and reflecting rather than just going full steam ahead into it. And that's allowed us to realise that how people can get involved is we need to listen to the people. Now, it's not just the health and social care partnership staff, it's independent sector, the third sector with Julie, etc. Because one size will not fit all. And I think that's how we've got to look at this and grow it organically, is that we've started a podcast. That's new for me. I'm still on Betamax videos. So a podcast is totally different for me. We're going to be doing a survey initially, and then we're going to build on that. We're going to see what they say, but one size will not fit all, Colin, and that we're going to have to reflect on that, because if you take the independent sector alone, there's probably about 80 different organisations that commission from P&K. In the third sector, there's, I don't know, about 30, 40 as well. So how do we get that message across to all those different organisations, as well as the beasts of the health and social care partnership, the different teams? So we're going to have to try go slowly and build up on this and reflect on the progress we make and listen to the people that's going to get involved. So as we put out the podcasts and surveys and team leaders get on board, it's a bit like we mentioned what matters to you. It's a bit like what matters to you ethos, Colin. I think it's got to it's got to start getting embedded in cultures. In some teams or organisations will move quicker than others, and some might not take it up. But at least we're giving them an opportunity. So we'll come up with a suite of opportunities that people can do in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months, and we'll reflect on it and build on it as well and adapt.
Dave, thank you very much. I think that's, again, when we come together, and I think we can, it's really nice to see third sector, private sector, allied health professionals, NHS, social work, social care, working together. Because when we talk about partnership, and that's not always easy. We talk about partnership, we've got to work at being a partnership. And I think working at being a partnership is at times difficult. But if the staff who come in through the door now and the staff that are already there, but are learning together, I think that just builds that relationship, an understanding of what each profession does and what each profession brings to the table as such. Do you think have you seen that, Dave, and been more involved in these sort of groups and having that opportunity to explore that?
Yeah, because obviously I come from a partnership background before, Colin, and I'd be sitting, it would just be the partnership. And that's all that be around the table. And now we've got Julie, we've got Mindspace Women's Aid, Perth Autism. There starts to be a richness in the conversations rather than this is what we think they want. It's actually, this is ask the question. And I think that what matters to you sessions, sorry for going back to that, but when was what matters to you sessions, and you would maybe have a GP sitting next to a carer, sitting next to an independent advocacy worker, sitting next to a health and social care member, staff, and just getting that sort of networking and making connections. I think that's how we need to move forward, is that the workforce is going to be so much pressure now and going forward, and it's going to be restricted the amount of staff we've got. It's how can we work best with them, and having a trained workforce that work together in partnership and learn together, then that can only make it better going forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that is the partnership, isn't it? That is the partnership. I think we often, when we talk about the partnership, we think of the health and social care as in nurse and social work as being the partnership. Actually, the partnership is all of us together, isn't it? And I think that bit there is important as well, that we see that. I like when you said, when you went old school there as well, Dave. I was worried there you were going to say if you want to write your answers on a postcard and send it back. That was going way back there. Probably for some of our younger listeners, they'll be thinking, what is that guy talking about? But but thank you for that. Jill, I'm going to come to yourself and then we're going to come back to James. But first, just part of this question here, what do you hope the work of the Learning and Development subgroup will do in improving, the workforce, that sort of learning and support, and improve the workforce? What do you think the work that you're doing will do to make that happen?
Was it for me?
If that's okay, Gillian, just coming in. I think I'm going to pick that up with each of you actually, but I think just because it'd be nice to see a different perspective of how you answer that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think what's really interesting, Colin, that a lot of the work that we are doing about trying to work together and create learning opportunities for staff to come and learn together, where they're also beginning to understand each other's roles and cultures and understand the pressures that each other are working on, so that we can maybe understand each other better and then work together in a more kind of compassionate way to provide that service. That's probably a really important thing, and we've had to learn to do that with each other as a group. Julie touched on that earlier. So there's something about the way that we're trying to slowly work together, reach agreements and common understandings. That's already a bit of a blueprint for how do we take that into learning sessions, but we're also building on some really good examples of how we do multi-agency training delivery anyway. And so I suppose what we know is we've got lots of small examples of where we're coming and learning and developing together. And this group is really about coming away from doing those individual pieces to actually saying, how do we have a bit more of a strategic approach to finding out, what are people aware of that's available in the way of learning and development? What are their needs? What's their experience been of what's been made available so far? And what do they think the gaps are? So it's really about moving on from small examples of collaborative working to actually really opening that out very, very clearly and saying, we can only do this if all the members of staff in whatever role they're in, whatever sector they're in, can give us a feel for how do they experience what's available, what do they wish there was, how do they know they learn best, and what kind of learning methods work best for them. So I think that's a biggie from the work that we want to do together.
So James, if I can ask this question, okay, and again for the listeners, we have a wee chat before we come live on air in the green room, and we have a wee chat about what's going on, what we're going to say, and how we're going to do this. So I'm going to ask this though. So I'll use Dave's word about training. So a lot of the workforce trained to be social work, nurses, counsellors, and maybe that is now, we call that learning as well, but I would say trained. And some of that going through your career, you have got to maintain that. So there's core skills that you need, I think is where I'm going with that. Have we, James, got to a position yet where we have looked at where we can share this sort of, and I know Gillian's just talked about that, shared that learning, and I hope I get this bit right. So we can look at how do we build that for the whole of the workforce, because you don't know what you don't know until somebody else tells you or shows you, or you watch until you go, oh, actually I could be doing that as well. I only thought that was allied health professionals that done that. And I think some of that has been around, if I'm right in saying that, is around maybe some of the use of equipment. And so I'm talking about occupational therapists there and use of the equipment. And I think other people have been able to not trained to be occupational therapists, but definitely been able to assist people in using the aids or being able to be a bit more informed, whereas years ago we'd maybe never thought of that. So is there any more examples, James, where we've started to stretch that, or is that still part of the work to see where we can look at things like that?
Yeah, you mentioned core skills there, Colin. I would suggest knowledge as well is so important within that, and the two can support each other. It's a good example around equipment that you use, and absolutely through our different professions, I can think of a number. Let me use my own, nutrition and dietetics. So an example would be, how do we support people that perhaps are maybe unintentionally losing weight to, prevent that plateau or perhaps gain weight again? And actually it's through helping to others to understand what's important and the different ways to go about doing that, whether we're fortifying our food and drink or trying to adapt activity levels. The wider sectors and organisations that we're coming together with here are best placed to really support that. It doesn't take a dietitian to understand, that adding cream or cheese, to meals will enrich in that. It's fairly basic stuff. We all eat and drink to survive, right? So we have some basic knowledge. And actually, how can we further enhance that to understand the impact that can have on people's lives? Let me use podiatry as another example. They will be the first ones to highlight that they're not a nail cutting service, contrary to misconceptions historically. But actually, it's so important that we look after our feet, right? It's something that we take for granted around cutting our nails and actually keeping our feet in good health in order to maximize our mobility and our potential for doing things for ourselves day to day. So I truly believe that by taking this collaborative approach, we'll engage with others, the different sectors, to help, that are probably seeing people a lot earlier, and really getting in there early and then helping folks to maximise their potential for life.
Absolutely.
And I think that's...
Sorry, Colin, I was just thinking what I'm conscious of here is that often when we're talking about the Health and Social Care Partnership, we're talking about social work, and I know that social workers are a very small percentage of our social work and social care workforce. So I suppose that's one of the other things that I want to be conscious of in the work that we're doing, is that we have massive social care workforce in Perth Kinross, and those are the staff that are doing that real personal, individualised care, and their opportunities to learn together as health and social care and independent sector care staff, support staff is so important, isn't it?
I think also both of you have hit on something there, because it's when James, when you started speaking about your workforce, and I know it's all we're here today to talk about, but you can see, I'm going to be honest, your eyes light up, because that is a job that and that's a job, and talking about, your role and doing that. But I think that's important, again, Gillian, when you're talking about social work, I know your background in social work and my background in social work as well.
Yes.
And we can talk about that, because I think there has been a bit, and again, this is where sometimes these podcasts are extremely good as well. There is a role for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, that we get that over to everybody as well. I think in a changing landscape, and again, although the map behind you will not change, it is Perth and Kinross, but there is changing needs in people, there is changing wants in people as well. But there is still a role for each of yourselves sitting round the in the studio here, as well as the workforce out there. And I think sometimes people get worried, what if I can start doing that, then does that mean then that are people learn how to do that? Does that job go from me? That is not the case. I think it is just about being better with the resources, better informed. I think is always a good word in that sort of learning. But we need the skills of all to be the
Yeah,
people to
yeah,
do the roles that they are doing. And I
yeah.
think that part there is important to myself and to yourselves as well, because I know we
Yes.
spoke about that before. So
And I suppose that's about just celebrating all
yeah,
of the individual roles. It's not about us wanting to work towards something where everybody's in a common generalized role. It's about
Yeah.
saying our differences are as important as what we have in common.
Yes.
And
Definitely.
learning and development's a great way to explore that and
Yeah.
improve
Yeah.
our understandings of that. Yeah.
Celebrating knowledge and the skills that
Yeah.
everyone brings, just
Yeah.
bringing it back to Colin's
Yes.
intro to that
Yeah.
question.
Yep, no, fantastic, guys. Very, very good. Now, I am just aware of time because the studio lights will go down shortly, and we'll be asked to leave the studio. But just a couple of things before we come to the end. So a couple of more questions I want to tease out, if that's all right. I suppose one of them is, Dave, if this is okay for yourself, and maybe you can't answer this because, as I say, this is the future. But what will this look like for the workforce? You know, what does that look like for the workforce? If I like to use this, and I don't know if anybody's been at training or anything I've delivered in the past, but I often talk about getting in Doctor Who's TARDIS. And anybody's listening to that, be like, oh, there's Colin going again about the TARDIS. Now, I am not a massive, well, I do like Doctor Who, but the thing is with the TARDIS, that it was amazing. The thing about the TARDIS that was amazing is, one, we can all get in there. So actually, her whole workforce can actually get in the TARDIS because it's a lot bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Also, you can go back and forward in it. You can stay in the present, but you can go back and forward. So I often like to use that as in, if we were all there together, Dave, in there, third sector, private sector, health, social work, in the TARDIS, we flew off, opened the doors, Dave introduced it as, this is a new landscape. What do you think that might look like, Dave? And that can be, you can be, as radical as the Doctor in this one and say, what do you think that might look like?
I hate Doctor Who. I'll put that out there now. I suppose I think if we're in the TARDIS, then I think we've been on a journey, and I think this is a restart for us because the learning development team for years, decades now, have always offered out the training to the independent and third sector, and have sometimes went out to the independent sector and delivered it to organisations.
Yeah.
And I think we're just taking the next step forward in that. So if I take dementia, for example, dementia will be it's already prevalent, it's going to get worse given the trajectory of the age and P&K. And if we can come up with a pathway of training that we can show to staff and organisations, whether it be in the partnership, independent sector, third sector, the wider partnership, if we can have a pathway that says, if you follow this, or we're offering you these opportunities to follow this pathway, you will fulfill your job, your CPL, whatever role you've got, whatever training you need, it's there because it's slightly easier in the partnership, the health social care partnership or bigger organisations that you have training departments behind you. If you're a small organisation, and Julie, you or the third sector, you don't have an HR team behind you, you don't have a training team behind you, you've got these pressures already, you don't know where to go. And like you said earlier, you don't know what you don't know. So if through the work of this group, if we can have some sort of depository of training resources, that means that staff on their own or as part of a team or part of an organisation can just go in and look and think, I need to go and do dementia training, I want to learn about this, I need it, either for my current role or development. There it is there. There's a pathway for them, Colin, that they don't have to then go and search everywhere, go down so many rabbit holes and come back out again. Because I'm thinking of a document we were trying to produce, and then you found that the links were broken. So if there could be the work of this team, this group, if we can come up with a repository like that, then I think that's the direction that the TARDIS will continue going on, so that we can all access it as services become more, integrations use the buzzword, as services become more and more integrated, either being the teams or the wider partnership, then we get integrated training, get integrated teams, closer working together, and the training resources underpin all that, and that's what we need.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Really liked your answer there, Dave. Thank you so much. So just moving on from there, Julie, I'm going to come to yourself. Probably the last question before we sort of round up, but if this is okay. So we have Dave has has been the doctor, although he said he doesn't like the doctor. From the
Yeah.
from the conversation we just had there, I think he actually secretly watches it. So we open up those doors there, okay? We open up those doors, okay? And that is a new horizon. How do we notice there has been change? How can we tell there
Yeah.
is change?
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're always looking for. We're always looking to see, what are we noticing? What are we noticing? What's different? What's changed? And it's so good to think about that, thinking about this new landscape. And I guess what I was really thinking is, you're saying that, Dave, the resources all coming together in a cohesive, connected way, where all of our colleagues across the whole sector can access that. But there's a human face to this. Human beings, we're not just the one human being, we're lots of human beings coming from our different sectors and bringing that rich tapestry, richness of knowledge and experience has been incredibly powerful. And what I really hope for, what that will notice, is that in the public, or the service users, or the patients, or the advocacy partners, or whatever we term people in our communities when they're accessing services, that actually we see some really more positive outcomes, even when the outcome isn't what people want, but there's actually been a process or a system that's happened around someone that feels like they participated in that, they belong to that. Because I think in our long journey to get to this point, we've had to be a bit humble. We've had to admit the things that we don't know. We've had to say, oh, I'm really under pressure and I'm really stressed out and I can't come to this next meeting. All these kinds of things. Yeah. We've got to know each other and become more human. And so my hope is that we will notice that in our case conferences, in the sort of scary meetings that everybody hates, particularly the people who are subject to the meeting, that they might actually feel the benefit of all of our connectedness, might make that bit of difference to the person in the community who's having a difficult time for whatever reason. When we're working with people, there's generally tough stuff to get through. So we just hope that this kind of training, learning, development can really make us feel that connection even when times are tough.
I think connecting, Julie, I think is such an important thing. And I think if we can connect with each
Absolutely.
other, and we can connect with again, use the map, but we can connect with the people who live within Perth and Kinross, I think that's so
Yes.
important. And I think that is a lovely way to end as such. I think that connection, and the learning that we do and the development, if we can bring people together and connect and make people understand more about the roles that we have, but also in doing that, we gain more skills in other areas that are not taken away from anybody. We're just gaining those skills to enhance the other person's role and also your own role, and being able to support that. Because I think again, we have that difficulty sometimes where, and I go back to what James is talking about there, you're right, James, your feet are so important, but we think that's only the role of one group of people, when in fact the mobility of people is really important to us all. So we've got to sometimes take away what that medical term is or what that term is, and actually just think about what we all can do to support each other through our learning and our development, so that we all have a better understanding. And I think, Julie, you're absolutely right. Those meetings can be scary for our staff, in the sense of coming together, because everybody thinks they're there again advocating for their own service. But in fact, if we have an understanding of what these meetings are, the purpose of them, but more importantly, the person who is there at the heart of all this, and that person-centered care, person-centered support that we talk about as well, they feel more comfortable in that, and not this you can feel sometimes that tension there. So I think all those things are vitally important in taking that forward. So it has been lovely this afternoon being able to talk to yourselves live in the Perth and Kinross studio on such a warm day. It might not be warm much longer, so we'll remember this day has definitely been warm. But Dave, coming to yourself, sir, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. As I say, I think we've been on a few shows together. And anything else that you would like to just end with? Anything that any words of wisdom?
For somebody that's, I said, old school and training, I think we've all got to, I know everybody's busy, but I think we've got to grasp the opportunities for learning and development in the new way, and that will continue to change. I'm a great believer in face-to-face training, but we've got so many other different avenues. But I think, and sometimes we don't reflect on this, is that I think whatever role you've got, and it could be frontline, it could be back office and that, and you're learning and developing yourself and your team and your organisation, is that somebody at the end of that is receiving a service.
Yeah.
And I think that's the crux of it, Colin, is that if we can make some small difference to somebody's life and somebody's family through the work of this group, then I think that's made it worthwhile.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Very well said. Very well said. And Julie, just coming to yourself again, absolute pleasure. Really nice to have you in the studio today and having that conversation around this. And obviously you can see how passionate it is to yourself. And I know the work of the independent advocacy, you know, just that importance about the person being at the centre of all that and having their voice heard. So again, just for yourself, anything you'd like to add just before we sign off from this podcast?
Just as Dave said, if this work that we've done together that's enriching our practice and enriching the practice in our teams, and then if that translates into our community, where people in Perth and Kinross feel that they matter and that the right decisions at the right time are being taken around them, I think that's a beautiful thing, and I think we should really try and work harder to do more of that. And this is actually one of my most favourite parts of my job right now, in making these connections with the people, because of the potential that it has in our communities.
Fantastic. And again, just leading on, James, I always like to give everybody the opportunity then just to say, and I suppose I'm going to just ask this slightly different. That's twice now I've kind of put you on the spot, and I do apologise, sir. But so I think we often, as I said, we talk about the third sector, and that is massive. We talk about the private sector, that is massive. We talk about nurses, massive. We talk about social work and social care, massive. But I think sometimes we talk about allied health professionals, big part of the workforce that sometimes are maybe not given the attention, possibly, that, and I'm saying this, so I can say this as host, sometimes maybe the attention out there, because I think people maybe sometimes think they're part of nursing and maybe get lost in that. So being on this podcast today, going back into your allied health professional colleagues, you know, what would you say to them about how what that future might look like? You obviously filled with hope, but do you feel you've now got a mark on the map as well that you might not have had before? And I could be wrong in saying that.
Yeah, I think in the role that I'm in now, Colin, works across all of the potentially 14 professions, and I've built some really great relationships with people. But that's only a beginning, and I would like to develop that further. You're right in saying individually some of the professions are quite small by numbers, but potentially huge and massive in impact in themselves, but also by supporting others, as we've talked about today. But collectively, we're the third largest workforce in the NHS. So, you know, it's exciting potential. And if I'm speaking to any of my colleagues at the moment watching this, I would implore them to consider the questionnaires that we're going to be doing. Please do fill them out. Please do share. Because actually creating this directory that we've talked about, I think it's going to be the first key step, I think, to understanding what we do within our silos. Let's be honest, we often do that. We need to step outside. We need to understand what everyone else does and how we can complement each other's work. So please do take a bit of time. It won't take long. There'll be 2 questionnaires. So get to it just after this. Hopefully they've got a bit of time in their lunch hour.
Fantastic. So I know, so the questionnaire obviously is coming out. It is something to look forward to, and obviously there is this plan. The workforce plan is obviously a big part of the work in yourselves, but it's not just for next week. This is about shaping things for the future and taking that forward. So Gillian, if I can, we started with yourself. We're going to come to an end with yourself as well, if that's okay. And just one around that, the questionnaire, I suppose. Is that possible to put that on the pod, like with the podcast as well? Can we send that out together? Would that be possible for staff to do? Could we put that all together?
I mean, I think that's definitely what we're looking at are our communication methods
Yep.
for sure, and how do we reach the most people in across the best range of methods. So yes, we're looking at the podcast being part of our communications. We'll have emails that'll have survey links attached, so we'll be trying every which way to communicate and reach as many people as possible.
Fantastic. And again, I think just before I come back to yourself, Gillian, ask any closing words from yourself. I think there's also a part from myself is through my learning and development over the years, which I take very seriously for the staff that I work together with, is we always seem to be in a rush. So that's why I think things like this afternoon have been lovely. All four of you have sat down in the studio, taken a chance to talk about something that's very passionate to yourselves. That's very important. For looking to get people to complete questionnaires and taking time to listen to the podcast, we also need to give them time as well. And I think, from a well-being and a learning point of view and a development point of view, sometimes we need to do that ourselves and model that as well. So anybody listening to this, I think just taking that, whatever it is, 30 minutes to listen to this, complete the quiz survey while you're listening to this would be a really nice way of doing it. So maybe we just need to be promotion of that as well. So that's from myself there. But Gillian, just closing word for yourself. Anything else you would like to add to this wonderful afternoon that we've spent together?
I mean, I think for me, one of the things that I think is really important is how do we better explain to people who use our services the types of learning and development that we all engage in. There's something for me about how do we make that more explicit, because it's about reassuring people that we are as well skilled and knowledgeable as we can be, that we do work together with our other colleagues who are part of their care package. There's something about us trying to convey reassurances and assurances around that we're constantly, it's a nice phrase about sharpening our saw. It's a Stephen Covey quote, and I love that because it just really sort of expresses that idea that you need to keep working at your skills and knowledge to keep them up to date, keep them sharp. So how do we convey that to the people that we provide services to? It's really good to me making that more explicit about, well, I've just done some training the other day and da-da-da. Yeah. So I think I'd like to see us just sharing this across the workforce and beyond, and how do we maybe show a bit of this work within our community so that our community understand how we're trying to work together and improve that. So that's what I'd like to see us do as well.
And if I may just add on to what you're saying there, Gillian, I think, like I'm saying, I love this group. I've gained confidence from this group. I think when we learn, when we feel like we understand better and we feel connected, then we actually grow in confidence, and we are better at delivering the work that we're paid to deliver. So I think there's something really about that personal growth. I would really encourage people to do the work, because I think there's a lot of personal confidence building that can happen there, and that's wonderful in our teams.
Yeah.
And that might also, I'm on the recruitment and retention subgroup, and that might actually help retention in organisations.
Let's
and
really
teams.
hope so.
So from today, we've all done a bit of learning. Dave's going to take something away to his other group as well that he has learned today. So that just shows how important learning and development is. I think also that bit there, Gillian, that you're mentioning there, we put cars into garages to get them fixed by mechanics who know what they're talking about, and we trust that. I think people in Perth Kinross need to trust the workforce that they have the tools and the skills to be able to help them with the problems that they are faced with. And I think that's what you were saying there, and I think that's really important as well, because I think things like care opinion and feedback and stuff, we will start to see if there is a difference in the learning development and of staff as well, and we'll start to gather that information. So it has been a wonderful afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about what is happening. I always like to offer this as well. Maybe in a year's time or something, it might be really nice to have you back and see if your TARDIS journey, Dave, has came true, and we've opened
Let's
those
do it.
doors. Yeah, we've opened
Yeah.
those doors, and there is a change, and Julie can
Let's
see
do
if
it.
that change is there. So I think these things are all really important. So can I just say thank you very much for myself, and
Thank you.
and cheerio from myself and everybody else out there. So see you all later.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, now.
Colin. Thanks
Bye.
for the opportunity.
With special thanks to Dave, Gillian, James, Julie, all members of the Workforce Plan Learning subgroup, and of course Colin. Our mission and purpose is to work collaboratively with you, the partnership workforce and community in creating an inclusive learning culture.